to the forces of South Korea a moment or two ago. I mentioned those, and they have a substantial force in South Vietnam assisting the South Vietnamese. Because the South Koreans have a very lively recollection of when they were under communist attack, and they recall how America and Australia and Great Britain and New Zealand and other friendly countries take the same look of being taken up by the forces of Chinese countries. Except where our Constitution requires it, I don't myself like, in principle, referendum on matters which a government should have the judgment and the courage to determine for itself. We have steadily built up the defence provision for this country. Our budget provision this year was $1,000 million. And we shall be building on that as occasion requires. I went recently in company with 6 other peace-seeking men to Manila. I can say with conviction, and I think I've had as much opportunity to study men in public affairs and their sincerity as anyone in this country. And I say that these are men of sincerity, dedicated to the search for peace, but determined that peace is not going to be bought at the price of the liberties of other people or the surrender of vital principles and policies essential for the future safety of our area of the world. The picture of the world have we allowed South Korea to be swamped by the forces of Chinese communism? Have we allowed Taiwan to be swamped? There will be no helping South Vietnam at this time. It would have been gobbled up also. And where in Southeast Asia would we have been able to make a stand? Does anyone imagine that the dramatic purge of communist strength in Indonesia would have taken place if America and other friendly forces had not come to the aid of South Vietnam? Indonesia would have gone communist as well. And we in Australia would have been living with a communist-controlled country of 100 million people within hours or even minutes of flying time from our northern shores, with the 700 million of people of China under communist rule and the other tens of billions of Asia, extending perhaps even into the subcontinent of India itself, coming rapidly under communist control. Topics which I believe concern this large, relatively underdeveloped northern state more than any other part of Australia. And they are the topics of development and defence. And they are wrapped up quite fairly together. The world are we Australians. And those young Australians here tonight who are making themselves heard, not all the young Australians are objecting in this way. I'm delighted to see so many friendly young Australians in this Brisbane audience at this time. Now, Mr. Chairman, I said something to say about our own policies and the results which have flowed from them. But as I won't be with you tomorrow night, when Mr. Caldwell is making his has in mind. I've mentioned how he has defined his own policy as proclaimed by the State Secretary of the New South Wales Division. I've mentioned how at the most recent elections he's included in his policy statement a pledge that he won't give a pledge to what is, after all, the core of the Labour Party platform, the socialisation objective. This is what Labour has been fighting for throughout Mr. Coronel's public profile. He debated. Now, firstly, he has put out a statement about how much the undertakings he will do are to cost. And he tells you that they will cost $300 million or thereabouts. And he doesn't regard that as being any very great sum. He has an interesting document which is as specious as it is fallacious. It's a document which doesn't carry a sentence to you. Through my ministerial colleagues, the late Jim Fairbairn, the late Jeffrey Street, and the late Sir Henry Gunnett were all killed in a service aircraft which was taking them to Canberra for a cabinet meeting. And because I was the only Victorian with ministerial experience, the then Prime Minister of the 50s said he wanted me back in the cabinet with him. My Prime Minister felt I could serve my country best there, and that is where I continue to serve. None of the 12 decided in its wisdom that these policies were necessary for Australia's security, for the kind of world in which we want to live, the kind of world in which we want to engage in mutually helpful trade, in mutually helpful exchanges, in mutually helpful security alliance. Because that's the kind of world we want.